Good evening and welcome to No Spin. I'm Nidhi Razdan. Should a husband's rape of his wife be treated as a rape under the law? The Delhi High Court today delivered a split verdict on this issue, meaning the two judges who were sitting on the bench did not agree and had different verdicts, and the matter now goes to the Supreme Court. India's rape laws essentially have an exception for husbands. Justice Rajiv Shakhtar, who headed the division bench, favoured striking down this marital rape exception, but Justice Hari Shankar said that this exception is not unconstitutional. Taking a closer look at what their respective verdicts said, Justice Shakhtar, who said that a married woman's right to bring offending husbands to justice needs to be recognized, saying that deifying women has no meaning if they are not empowered, they are our equal half. And it would be tragic if a married woman's call for justice is not heard even after 162 years. He went on to say that self-assured good men have nothing to fear if this change is sustained. However, Justice Hari Shankar has said that the exception does not say that husbands would be exempt from being prosecuted for rape. It says that sexual acts between husband and wife are not rape, and that the offence of rape, therefore, does not exist in a marriage, and that it would be complete misadventure for a court to strike down this exception.
Is it a crime or not? Two judges of the Delhi High Court were divided today on whether sex forced upon a wife by the husband should be considered rape. The court was hearing a batch of pleas challenging protection given to men who have non-consensual intercourse with their wives from criminal prosecution. The judges did agree that the matter should be heard by the Supreme Court.
ये split verdict जो है, ये society का situation को दर्शाता है, क्योंकि ये मानना कि इस मुद्दे पे सिर्फ एक ही राय हो सकता है is not possible. क्या कोर्ट के पास एक पावर बन जाता है किसी चीज को क्रिमिनलाइज करने का? Before you come to the merits, do you have the power to enter this particular territory at all? जो legislative policy के अंदर आता है.
Justice Shakhtar has said that the exception is unconstitutional under Articles 14, 15, 19 and 21. We've argued it a complete round once, we've argued a complete round a second time. Now there will be at least a third round, and we are ready for it, because this is a blot on the face of this constitution. It is a blot on the face of this country.
The centre has avoided taking a firm stand on this before the High Court, from opposing the pleas in 2017 on jurisdictional issues to seeking more time in the name of wider consultations in February this year.
With split verdict from Delhi High Court, the case of criminalization of marital rape now goes to Supreme Court as substantial questions on law are involved. With camera person Prem Singh, this is Arvind Gunasekar for NDTV.
Well, Karuna Nandi, advocate of the Supreme Court, who has been one of the prime petitioners in this case, joining us on NDTV today. Karuna Nandi, just looking at some of the details of Justice Hari Shankar's judgment in particular, I mean, some of the things that, he has said, that sex between a husband and wife is sacred, that introducing into the marital relationship the possibility of the husband being regarded as the wife's rapist, in my view, is completely antithetical to the very institution of marriage. Now, isn't this the problem? When there seems to be a free pass given to husbands to force themselves on their wives. Are we still asking this question in the 21st century?
It appears that we are. But I'm also hopeful that this is why we have the multi-layer system in the judiciary. And this is why also actually that we approach the High Court at the first instance, so that what we see as errors can be corrected as we go forward. The difficulty, of course, is that women are being raped as we speak. And the exception to Section 375 says that married rapists have a conjugal right to penile vaginal rape and also anal rape and gang rape, right? Because let's be clear, a woman who is married to her rapist, can't prosecute him for gang rape because it's not rape. And we had in fact presented a fact pattern to the Honorable High Court in which this had happened, where a man had facilitated gang rape and had, gang raped his wife himself. And yes, it's an unusual case, but how important is it that it be recognized, that be recognized as rape, that forced anal rape be recognized as rape, that even if a woman doesn't feel like having sexual intercourse with her husband that night, that be recognized as rape.
Absolutely. But do you see hope when you see Justice Shakhtar's judgment, for instance, that there are voices in the judiciary out there that are listening to what petitioners like you are saying, that are listening to women? Under no circumstances, and I say this very strongly, can it be okay for any man, husband or not, to force himself on a woman? What don't these people understand about consent?
I think that what also gives me hope is the fact that Justice Shakhtar's very robust judgment also reflects what is currently, in my view, the constitutional position. Because judgments of constitutional bench of the Supreme Court, judgments like Joseph Shine, judgments like, but also judgments like Navtej Johar and judgments like the Puttaswamy judgment, they are very clear about a woman's right to intimate decision-making, to sexual autonomy, to the freedom to choose. And so in the current circumstance in 2022, I think what we will be saying, and what I think that we must ask ourselves is that in taking away a woman's right to say no, that we are also taking away her ability to say a joyful yes to her husband. And we are then therefore reducing married women to sexual objects and legal subjects within a marriage.
Absolutely.
This is why men's organizations are standing with us. A number of men's organizations are standing with us and saying that we want to have that joyful mutual yes in our marriage. That we don't want to be in a position where, legally speaking, we are forcing ourselves on our equal, partner wives every day because the law is such.
One of the arguments that those who, have made, and I believe Justice Harishankar's judgment is also being interpreted this way, is that it's not for the courts to create a new offence in the law, which is what it would amount to if a husband would also be, accused of rape. And therefore, that is the domain of the legislature. How would you look at that question?
So, both the Supreme Court judgment in Shaira Banu and in Navtej Johar are very clear that where the legislature fails to protect individual rights, the courts and the constitution exist for this reason. The fundamental rights of this country are such that 100 people may say that people with green hair should be killed, but the court will protect that one person against 100 people, against 100,000 people, against 1 billion people's views. That is why our constitution exists. That is why our constitutional courts exist.
Well, Karuna Nandi, this fight now moving to the Supreme Court, I don't know how many years that might take, but good luck to you and to the other petitioners who are fighting that good fight. Thanks very much for joining us. Joining us now on NDTV is Member of Parliament from the Shiv Sena, Priyanka Chopra. Priyanka Chopra, your first thoughts on this split verdict today. Disappointed?
Quite disappointed, and actually it just gives a true picture of what India thinks about marital rape law. I was hoping that the Delhi High Court would show the way, considering how Kerala High Court also had taken a stance on it. But now the ball is in the Supreme Court. I somehow have come to believe that the country is split on this decision, and it is something that all stakeholders need to discuss, but it is something that women need to have, a right that they need to have in cases of marriages where we see a high number of marital rape cases where husbands get away with the behavior they display. So I think it is disappointing, and I would hope the Supreme Court would take a more pragmatic stance.
But we often hear this argument from those that defend this exception to the rape law, that this will somehow, unsettle marriages in the country. Is it so archaic today that marriage for many is still thought in terms of, a license to force yourself on your wife, on your partner?
Absolutely. It is about, it is something that India needs to do away with, considering we are amongst those handful countries which haven't criminalized marital rape, and considering we have progressive laws as far as women's rights are concerned. This is one thing which is stopping India from really being able to give women the justice they seek. And this entire argument of marriages failing and interference in marriages, privacy being denied in terms of marriages, husbands being denied their rights, I think it is a ridiculous argument to have. If you, no woman is crazy to go and use acts which are criminal in nature to use to destroy her families. This is a very I would say an ambiguous defense that is coming, and putting the onus on women to carry forward the tradition of a family or carry forward the responsibility of being, a part of a family.
So can I ask you though, that as a politician, as a member of parliament, what is the general feeling when you talk to fellow MPs and lawmakers? Are they also still stuck in that old mindset, that archaic mindset? Is it going to be a long road to convince parliament at least to overturn something like this?
Absolutely. These discussions, wherever I have had it, unfortunately, we haven't been able to reach at a consensus. Everybody thinks it's interference in private lives, interference in family lives. It will disrupt families. It will disrupt traditional family values that India holds dear to itself. So I would say even the parliamentarians on this particular issue are very split. But as a woman, as someone who has been speaking vocally about women's rights, this is one right which is being denied to them. And the onus of carrying forward India's values, culture, traditions, etc., every time falls on a woman. And when does woman speak about her rights, and when does women get the rights that she duly deserves, is something that India really needs to discuss as we progress as a nation. So even the parliamentarians, I can tell you for sure, are split on this particular issue.
At the heart of it, of course, is the issue of consent. And it seems that there is a complete lack of understanding that a woman has to consent to a sexual act, and that includes in a marriage. That seems to be completely missing here, the whole concept of consent, isn't it?
Absolutely. The assumption that just because by the virtue of marriage, a husband can do what he wants without the consent of his wife is something which is absolutely denying the woman her right to be able to say yes or no to a particular act. So yes, I totally agree with you that the idea of consent is totally missing in our narrative when we discuss issues which are sensitive in nature, which are I would say sensitive as well as progressive, but at the same time addressing this particular issue.
Just one final question, Priyanka Chopra. I mean, just on the fact that you had male judges at the moment. It was a 2-judge bench, both men, kind of deciding on this. Would you hope that there would be a woman judge also when the Supreme Court eventually does take this up? Because it just seems that, men are just deciding what's good for us, what's right for us, what's lawful, what's not.
Unfortunately, that's been the tradition in India since 1947. We thought our constitution gave us equal rights, but women have not been at the power tables to be able to make those decisions. Judiciary is also a reflection of women's participation in spaces of being able to take that, make that decisive call. Unfortunately, we have also seen women judges giving a call from more traditional perspective and a more exclusive perspective, where they feel that women should be, when they sign up for a marriage, they should be in agreement with whatever the husband wants them to do. So I think whether it is a male or a female judge deciding this, they have to look at it from the perspective of a rights-based approach, where a woman has the right, whether in a marriage, outside of marriage, to be able to approach the courts of law or the police forces and ensure justice is done to her for something that she was not a party to and was forced upon.
Priyanka Chopra, thanks very much for joining us with your views on this big story today. Thanks. So two big court verdicts in a sense that we're looking at today, one of course on marital rape, the other on sedition by the Supreme Court. Joining us now is former Supreme Court Justice, Justice Deepak Gupta. Justice Gupta, thank you for joining us. Let me first ask you on the split verdict on marital rape by the Delhi High Court. Just moments ago we also received the sort of detailed order. And, we have Justice Shakhtar who has said that, it is important to strike down this exception for marital rape, saying, that women need to be empowered. They are our equal half, as he puts it, our delightfully better half. And you have Justice Hari Shankar on the other hand, who says that it's not rape if it happens in a marriage, which I have to say as a woman has come as a bit of a shock in the 21st century. But can I ask you, how do you see this issue, sir?
Nidhi, first of all, as far as my personal opinion goes, I feel I support Justice Shakhtar's judgment totally. In fact, sitting with Justice Madan Lokur in a case called Independent Thought, we had for the first time held that if the girl was below 18 but above 15 and she was the wife, then it would be rape whether she had consented or not. That was judgment delivered by us about 3 years back. And at that time, we were not dealing with marital rape. But I strongly believe that when a woman says no, it means no, whether she's married to the man or not. Having said that, let's not brush aside what Justice Hari Shankar has said. It was a matter which troubled me when I was dealing with the other judgment, because his argument is not that he supports this. He says whether it is in the domain of the courts to decide such issues, or whether it is for Parliament to decide. You see, there is an issue in that. That's a very legal issue as to whether our courts now stepping into the field of legislation by deciding that this will be an offence. See, you are creating an offence in a certain way.
Right, but we probably need the courts to do that when the legislature doesn't.
No, that is, so one can't brush aside that argument. I'm not saying I don't agree with it. Personally, I don't agree with it, but it's a very strong argument. I wouldn't brush it aside and say that is, you see, I have not gone through both the judgments in detail, but from what little I've seen of Justice Hari Shankar's judgment, it is not that he says that, he's only saying about the jurisdiction of the court to hold that this explanation is not whether it is constitutional or not. He says that's not within our domain.
Are you saying that's because you would have to create a new offence? Because it's not that the courts don't intervene and interpret law. They do that all the time. They lay down guidelines, they lay down conditions on how laws should be interpreted, even sedition, by the way, which I'm going to talk to you about. So is this only because technically it would mean the creation of a new offence, since at the moment there is an exception legally given to husbands?
I think that's the only thing what Justice Hari Shankar has said. He has not supported it otherwise from what I've read of the judgment. And nobody, frankly, nobody can support, marital rape in today's day and age when women have the same rights as men. Why should they not have the right to say no to sex in marriage also? You can't be forced to have. A woman is not chattel. She's not property that the husband can treat her as he wants, at his own whim or fancy.
Absolutely. On the sedition issue also, Justice Gupta, how historic is this move by the Supreme Court to actually keep the law in abeyance now until the government decides on it? It's taken a pretty strong stand today.
It's a very welcome move. It's a very strong stand. And I think it does send a message to the court, both in this marital rape case and this sedition case. When they feel that they're before a bench which is not comfortable, which is not very, doesn't think their way, then the government suddenly says we want time to look into the matter ourselves. Even in the marital rape matter, they said that. These cases have been pending for years. This government has been in power since 2014. Why do they wake up at the last minute to say that we look into the matter? If they want to look into the matter, I have nothing wrong. They have 2 months to look into the matter. The Supreme Court will hear the matter after the vacations, about 2.5 months. If they look into the matter and withdraw the law of sedition, well, then the court will not have to answer the question. But if they don't look into the matter, they don't withdraw it or make a very yesterday the law minister hinted that they're not going to withdraw this provision, they may put some safeguards. Now then again, the court will have to look into all this.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you about that because it's not as if safeguards weren't there, in the sense that there were very clear Supreme Court judgments on this which said that there had to be an actual incitement to violence to warrant a sedition charge. Now, successive governments have ignored that, and we've seen actually sedition cases rising exponentially in the last 8 years or so. So therefore, is it in your view that the sedition law needs to go, period? You can't really have safeguards and ifs and buts anymore.
I have been, not now, I've been strongly of this view always, that in a democracy where dissent is the very essence of democracy. If I do not have the right to criticize the government, then there is no democratic polity in the country. And if we have to be a democracy, then there has to be criticism of the powers that be. But incitement to violence, these can be offences, but the manner in which the sedition law is framed, you see, what happens is the court in Kedarnath Singh's case laid down certain guidelines. Later in Balwant Singh's case also guidelines were laid. But the police officials just look at the letter of the law, that it creates hatred or contempt against the government, or it creates disaffection against the government, and therefore we're booking the person. And it's used across the political spectrum by all parties when they are in power. And once they're out of power, they all shout that we want to have it abolished. But the minute they come back into power, then they all want to even make it more stringent.
Can I ask you what you feel about the law minister's comment today after this order came, that courts should respect the government, we respect the courts, that we have a clear demarcation and boundary, and that the Lakshman Rekha should not be crossed by anyone?
I really haven't read these remarks in detail in what context has been said. But if the law minister is hinting that the Supreme Court crossed the Lakshman Rekha, then I would disagree with him. And I would also say that the government itself has invited this stay.
Okay.
By trying to push, they could have argued the matter. The bench, instead of arguing the matter, they said they filed an affidavit that you should not hear the matter. Why did the government not cross the Lakshman Rekha when it told the Supreme Court, please don't hear the matter, we'll decide. Well, if you don't want the matter to be heard, then you should be ready, you should give some concrete deadlines. If they're given some concrete deadlines, yes, within 2 months we'll decide what has to be done. I'm quite sure that the Supreme Court may have given them the time without passing this order. But they were making vague statements, very general statements, not giving a firm deadlines. The Supreme Court had no other option but to pass the order which it passed today. And I think it's a very welcome move by the Supreme Court. It tells the powers that be that you must not take, you must take criticism with broader shoulders than you take. You can't be oversensitive when you're in power.
Well, Justice Deepak Gupta, thank you. Strong words there from you. Thank you very much for joining us on NDTV. Thank you.
Thank you very much.